Did you know that if you count all the mason jars sold in the world in 2015 and you laid them end to end, they would circle the entire Earth? Lots of mason jars that were made. Oh, by the way, today is November 30th, and that's National Mason Jar Day. So where did the first Mason Jar Day come from? Well, the first Mason Jar Day was observed in 2017, so it's not a very old holiday. The founder of a company called Unboxing the Bazaar, which is a monthly subscription box that sends you items to celebrate some of these weird holidays that we talk about, actually created Mason Jar Day. That was one of the things they came up with, and her name is Misty Campbell Olbert. So if you're interested in checking that out, that might be something, if you enjoy this podcast, checking out Unboxing the Bazaar. But if we look to where mason jars came from, we go all the way back to 1858, and that was by a man named John Landis Mason, thus the name mason jars. He was a tinsmith, and he actually invented things a little opposite of what you might think. Most people might think you do the jar first and then the lid, but he actually did it opposite. He invented the first mason jar lid, which is a unique feature of every single mason jar. Everybody can make a jar like that, but the lid was unique. And he patented that jar in 1858 to go along with the lid, but that patent expired 21 years later in 1879. So when you think about all the mason jars that have ever been produced, ever been made, he's made no money off of them after 1879 because that patent expired. And so our by the way fact is going to be another manufacturing fact that goes right along with the fact that I gave at the start of 2015. And that is how many mason jars can be made per second by the Ball Canning brand, which is one of the most popular mason jar companies. They have it now so they can manufacture 17 mason jars a second. So you can see how easy it was to take all those that were sold in 2015 and stretch them across the entire Earth. And mason jars, they've always been popular, and they really gained popularity during World War II. That was a difficult time for people in the United States, and so the government encouraged their citizens to grow their own food, can them, save them, ration them, really to make things easier for themselves. And so there was an increased demand for mason jars, and they really took off during those years and shortly after. But they really went on a downturn after the war ended. There was a lot of advances in refrigeration that was made at that time. Preservations of goods was much easier because of the advances that were made. And veggies and fruits were a lot easier for people to get. Up to that point, they really hadn't been. People might have had to travel a distance to get them, but now it was much easier. So people didn't need to can as much as they did during the war. And so mason jars really took a downtick after that point because they weren't in such high demand. So how can you celebrate mason jar today? Well, you could simply buy some mason jars if you don't have any. They can be very useful in your home. They can be helpful to you. And if you already have some, like was talked about the other day, you can make a parfait and eat it out of a mason jar, which is a proper way to eat parfait. You could also go really old school and you could can some fruits and veggies for a connection to what they were and how they were very popular for a long time. And then, of course, you have something to eat later. So win-win, right? So that's all I have for today about Mason Jar Day. We learned where it came from. We learned how we can celebrate, and we learned some interesting facts about them. So tune in tomorrow, and I'll have another day that we can celebrate together. And until then, you can go to our website, bythewaytodayis.com. You can listen to older episodes. You can subscribe, rate, and follow our podcast there. And we will talk to you tomorrow. If you enjoy By the Way Today Is, please be sure to follow, rate, and subscribe to this podcast. If you have a holiday that you'd like to have talked about, please email it to btwtodayis@gmail.com.